the South African government did not initiate the repatriation of anyone. It is the home countries of Nigeria, of Ghana, of Malawi, who said they are going to repatriate their citizens. Because in terms of mandate, we have no obligation and responsibility to repatriate anyone. Our responsibility in terms of our immigration laws is to deport those who are in the countries illegally. And also the government of Mozambique then repatriated. And we must indicate the government of Mozambique, when they started to initiate repatriations, they coordinated with ourselves to make sure that they get support. And we must also acknowledge their intervention that has helped us to guide how do we support the other repatriations. The government of Mozambique, when they started to repatriate, they said because their buses are too many, they are requesting that they be escorted. And we started to escort the buses. It was the first export of repatriation of Mozambique was the buses traveling from Mossel Bay, if you recall the Mossel Bay incident. And we repatriated the people of the government of Mozambique repatriated its citizens with our support. What we have been clear about is that there's nobody who's going to be repatriated without being processed in the country, because there are no fugitives against the law who are going to leave the Republic of South Africa. They have to be prosecuted. You can't leave with children who are South African children. You can't leave with children who are not accounted for in terms of their parents. And you'll recall we released a statement through the Border Management Authority in terms of the number of children who were refused to exit because they were not traveling with their parents and there was no proper authorization by their parents to leave the country, because we have a responsibility to protect children. There were South Africans who were taking chances saying they want to visit Mozambique, if you recall, and they are going to visit their friends. We denied them to leave the Republic. The things got to head when the Malawian government were, after making a call for reparations, they did not have enough resources. And that call was made not even by the government of Malawi. It was made by the High Commission of Malawi. Then they pleaded for donations, contributions to repatriate people. And then the numbers became unbearable at Sherwood. And it was going to start to be a humanitarian crisis. The government then intervened and said, how do we assist? But the honors of repatriating Malawians still lies with the government of Malawi. We are only intervening to make sure we avoid a humanitarian crisis. With the other countries who are repatriating, people gather in their embassies or high commissions or consulate offices across the country. But Malawians did not go to their high commission or to their consulate. They went to home affairs offices. Even as we speak, yesterday we were at the Musina Repatriation Center. The officials of the Malawi High Commission, they decided they are going to sleep, whereas the officials of Home Affairs, BMA, and all parties in South Africa work 24 hours non-sleep to process the Malawian nationals. We do not know what is the number that is coming through. When we think we had progress, a large number, more numbers are coming through. And that's why we sent DECO to interact with the Malawi High Commission to make sure that their officials are available 24/7. Because the challenge with Malawi is that Malawians don't even have papers. They are being issued what is called collective passport so that they can leave. So without the Malawian High Commission being available 24/7 to help us to process, there won't be papers for them to exit the country. So do we know when are we going to finish processing? We're processing at the pace of processing and the rate of processing on the South African side is much quicker than the rate we're processing at Sherwood in terms of the reparations. But we are hamstrung by the unavailability of the Malawian High Commission and Mission in South Africa at a 24-hour basis to make sure that their citizens are treated with dignity and they can be repatriated as quickly as possible.
Crisis, the psychological liberation is now back to haunt us. This is where Fanon and Biko remains indispensable. Fanon warned that colonialism does not only occupy land, it also occupies the mind. Biko warned that the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressed is the mind of the oppressed. Political liberation did not automatically complete psychological liberation. The collapse of Black solidarity is one of the most painful signs of this unfinished task. The Black suffering becomes normal to us. Something has gone terribly wrong. When we are unmoved by the suffering of Black children at the traffic lights, but moved immediately when whiteness cries on television, then Fanon is speaking to us. When Africans turn against other Africans, colonialism is still alive in the mind. When the oppressed police one another instead of confronting the system that oppressed them, then the revolution remains incomplete.
All right, so serious countries took action immediately after they heard the threats that were being fired by March and March. And then what about Zimbabwe? They were just quiet. And until hell broke loose, and there was so much mourning on social media, that's when we saw kind of the power structures of Emmerson Mnangagwa, Chizwana Tungwarara and so forth begin to speak. It is shameful. It speaks volumes, right? Anyway, I've said this and I repeat again. I genuinely believe there are so many people in ZANU-PF who suffer from mental illness. I think we've discussed this before. You cannot abduct, torture, and kill and you're still a normal person. You cannot unleash such kind of violence and lies, deception, and still be normal. Where do you draw a line between real life and actually fake life? Sometimes what we call politics is not politics. It's our characters. Most of people come from dysfunctional families and they're projecting that toxicity to everyone. It is actually sad, but my suggestion is simple. You need to get therapy. It's okay to get therapy. It doesn't make you less of a person. I think one of the person that needs or urgently needs therapy is Emmerson Mnangagwa. He is not okay mentally. Whether you like it or not, it's clear. And I think it's always been. Because if you remind him of Mateveleland, 20,000 people, for people that were murdered, massacred, if you hear the stories, the horror stories, that can never be done by a normal person. The violence, abductions, torture that has been going on over the years, sexual violence against women and children, you cannot be normal. You cannot be normal. Let's look at that comment from Chipo Dendere. So the fact that South Africa has been home to millions of African migrants in all sectors, education, etc., should tell us that the anti-migrant waves are rooted in certain problems, not just Afrophobia. The real enemy is poverty and economic inequality. Poverty is cruel and creates hate. Facts. And some of the independent analysts speaks the same thing. Take a listen.
The only thing that has changed since 1994, because I've been through the numbers, is that the collapse of the Zimbabwean economy. So we have to solve those things at source. Migration is a function. It's not a security issue. It's not a legal issue. It's a function of unbalanced economic development in a region. So once you start seeing it from a regional perspective, everything changes. So we must solve the problem at source in Zimbabwe. And that's what I believe, yeah.
We're going to talk to the ANC about that because they have been taking flack for exactly what you are suggesting, that the governments that neighbor us and the instability there.
All right, I know some of you, it's your first time to pass through this channel. Please subscribe, like, comment responsibly, and turn on your notification button as well. You're also allowed to share with others. Oh, by the way, I forgot to inform you that I have a WhatsApp channel. Please follow me, Ruby Uncensored. I'm going to drop the link in the description box and in the comment section. Please follow my WhatsApp channel. A lot is happening. I love you guys. Stick around.
I suspect that some of these African leaders actually don't mind their people leaving, because many of these
it's less
people,
of their problems.
exactly, they reduce the pressure of delivery from them. If you look at, I've been looking at remittances, money that is sent from South Africa, from other countries, back to these migrants' home countries.
Even a country as what you would think is unstable as Somalia, the amount of remittances that come in from diaspora, that should be, as a start, enough to rebuild any country, as a start.
Yes.
Of the African nationals who were seeking to leave South Africa in the lead up to mass action on June 30th, Nigerians are by far the biggest contributors of remittances to their home country. $21.3 billion a year, representing 11.3% of that country's GDP, according to the latest figures published by the World Bank. The US, UK, and Gulf countries are Nigeria's main remittance sources. At $3.6 billion a year, the money Zimbabweans send back home represents 8.4% of their country's GDP. South Africa remains Zimbabwe's largest remittance corridor. Ghanaians generate $2.9 billion in remittances a year, or 3.7% of their country's GDP, money sent mainly from the UK and US. Uganda receives $2.5 billion deposited from the UK, US, and South Africa yearly. Congolese nationals generate $2 billion, with Angola as the DRC's main remittance source, followed by France, the Republic of the Congo, South Africa in fourth place, ahead of Belgium. Lesotho, Mozambique, Malawi, and Eswatini nationals send $476, $267, $264, and $85 million annually from South Africa.
I mean, Lesotho, for example, 20% of the GDP is from remittances. People who work mainly in South Africa who are sending money back home. Nigeria, 11%. Many of these, I mean, Nigerians are all over the world.
Not just in South Africa.
Exactly, not just in South Africa. So, and these are productive human resources
which should be directed to the countries themselves.
Exactly. But if they were in those countries, they probably would be agitators.
Yes.
And they would agitate for change.
Yes.
And so...
And that will not be welcome in many countries.
Exactly.
Fikile Mbalula, who has always been on the side of Emmerson Mnangagwa, is speaking something completely different. Let's read his comment quickly. He said, "He is the part of the opportunists to never tell you. Time and again, when this government has moved to enforce immigration law, it has been dragged to court, not to make it deport, but to stop it. When the government moved to end the Zimbabwe exemption permit dispensation, Helen Suzman Foundation took the Minister of Home Affairs to court, and in June 2023, the High Court in Pretoria set that decision aside as unlawful, shielding some 178,000 Zimbabwean permit holders from removal, a ruling the government then lost in appeal. The Scalabrine Sender, Lawyers for Human Rights, and others have, over many years, repeatedly and successfully approached our courts to constrain removal and to protect the rights of migrants and asylum seekers. This is the truth the slogan hides. The NC government has often been doing so much on immigration that the courts themselves have had to rein it in. You cannot, in the same breath, sue the government for deporting and then accuse it of doing nothing. I think, Mr. Fikile, you have forgotten that you have been cheering on Emmerson Mnangagwa, who's buying cars like confetti, spending millions and millions of dollars just to promote his CAP 3. I'm not surprised that Cyril Ramaphosa just distanced himself from the charade. You don't forget that South Africa is going to be the chair leader for SADC this year. They've been sitting in position of Madagascar that dropped immediately after the military took over. For those that have been saying, oh, military this and military that, nobody cares of what's going on in Madagascar. But trust me, life goes on. You need to know that there's a difference between an illusion and reality of life. There is no way people in Madagascar would suffer keeping a man with no direction was just finding his luxury lifestyles. I've been saying to many Zimbabweans, we are Emmerson Mnangagwa and most of ZANU-PF criminals, slaves. So when they are singing, Asingade Ngabudemu Zimbabwe, they are not just singing. They're sending a message, go outside and work, send the diaspora remittances so that we can eat and drink. I can tell you the kind of immorality that's going down in Zim. Are you surprised why women are now aiding their buttocks and boobs? I'm sorry, y'all. Sometimes we have to speak truth. It's not their money. It's being funded by ruthless and criminals in the country that is being protected by gangs. It's pathetic and shameful. Zimbabwe can never be Mexico. Take a listen.
Yeah. And that's not only that. They are not only just changing the constitution in order to make the president stay in power up to 2030, but they've also passed the resolution that the 15th of September will become a national holiday. That's his birthday. And it's christened Munumutapa Day. And Munumutapa was an ancient Shona monarchy. So definitely he wants to introduce a monarchy. And the first step that he has done is to declare his birthday as a Munumutapa Day. He is not a descendant of the Munumutapa, but clearly the guy has stolen elections. He is now he's moving towards stealing royalty, and this is meant to avoid elections. And once he has declared the Zimbabwe monarchy, he would have avoided elections. And parallel to that, there is a young man that he has been pushing around. Yeah. And this young man has
to come to that, does he have his own succession plan?
Yeah, he has his own succession plan. But on this front, the attempt to make Zimbabwe a monarchy, he is pushing a young man who has been writing letters to every government department, seeking to be recognized as King Munumutapa. And we thought the guy was delusional. But now when we see the concomitant declaration that the president's birthday is now called Munumutapa, then it's beginning to make sense. Yeah. The guy is also moving towards exploring making himself a monarchy and be at the helm of Zimbabwe for as long as possible without elections.
I'm loving Ramaphosa, respect to say, because Ramaphosa realized that I can be dragged down here, because remember last time when he came to Zim, which I thought he really came to have a conversation with Mnangagwa to say, no, things aren't looking great there. People no longer want the drama. But because Mnangagwa has always been Mnangagwa, for me, it's about money and gold. Once I throw the dollar, it's over. Right? So where we are today, I think it got a shock. Emmerson Mnangagwa was shocked. And that's one of the reasons why he was very rude when he was addressing people. He said, no, don't ask me further questions. I'm like, to say you're a public servant. You're not a god. You are a public servant. You're sitting in a chair where you're accountable to the citizens. You're an employee of the Zimbabwean people. You're not their god.
My people, in April 2026, a shipment left Zimbabwe that had never left any African country before. Ever. It's something called lithium sulfate. Yeah. For the first time, Zimbabwe, Africa's largest lithium producer, shipped processed lithium, a finished intermediate chemical product ready for battery manufacturing. Yes, the very first processed lithium from the continent. And my people, that historic shipment may be one of the most important economic stories on the continent this year. And it quietly flew under the radar. But as you already know, nothing important flies under the radar here on The Breakdown. Zimbabwe just did something that Africa has been talking about for 60 years. Kwame Nkrumah talked about it. Julius Nyerere talked about it. Thomas Sankara talked about it. Every generation has talked about it. But very few have actually done it. They processed their own resource, and they made the world's largest battery companies pay to do it. Today, we're breaking down the historic move that Zimbabwe just made, what it looks like in practice, what it still doesn't fully solve, and why every African government and every member of this diaspora, yes, you watching, need to be paying close attention.
Zimbabwe just flipped the rules of the global lithium race. All these headlines, which I know the hand of Varakashi is definitely there trying to propel lies. These lithium things, Zimbabweans are not benefiting nothing. Who is then to benefit there? Of course, we know their bodies at the expense of our people. So I'm really glad that the whole kingdom plan is falling apart because South Africa was like, no, why are you singing that people need to leave? You're making your population become smaller and smaller intentionally so that when you create a kingdom, you feel comfortable and you can eat peacefully. It can never happen.